Walhart the Conqueror has arrived, and he's ready to take on the enemy by himself if need be. Now first off, the art for this guy is insane, and you gotta give it to the artist Soeda Ippei for definitely having a very unique art style for this game compared to the more typical anime standard. They are the same artist for Dorcas and Arden if you want to see more of their characters. As for Walhart himself, he comes from Fire Emblem Awakening and clashes with Chrom and his shepherds. Walhart is a conqueror, and he definitely is very fearsome in battle. He is an Axe Cavalier, and we don't have a huge number of those compared to Sword and Lance Cavs, so Walhart is a nice free unit to get. Looking at his stats, he has 41 HP, 37 attack, 27 speed, 36 defense, and 16 resistance. So right off the bat, that 37 base attack is quite impressive, and it's the highest for the Axe Cavalier class. His 36 defense also ties for highest in the group with Frederick. Besides those two stats, his HP is decent, but his speed and resistance are a bit below average. Definitely don't want him to get hit by any magic damage. For Walhart's base kit, we'll skip his weapon for now. His special is Luna, which is fine, but with his high base defense, Bonfire would be another good option. Granny's Shield is his A skill, and it protects Walhart from effective against cavalry weapons, so that would be things like the Zanbato and Makai's Donny Tome. While it does its job protecting against a large 1.5 times damage multiplier, it's going to be a kind of a niche skill because not a lot of people are running anti-cavalry weapons in the first place. Most people will probably replace it. One skill that you may not want to replace is Chill Defense, which debuffs the enemy with the highest defense stat on the enemy team with -7 defense. The chill skills are pretty powerful in the fact that they cannot be stopped, but you're only targeting one unit unless the enemy has units with the same defense stats. With Walhart's really high attack, he will be sure to dent even the tankiest units after Chill Defense takes effect. If you don't want to use Walhart, then Chill Defense is the skill to inherit from him. Alright, so now let's talk about Walhart's unique axe, the Wolf Berg. Wolf Berg grants a flat +3 defense to Walhart, which means he sits at 39 defense before anything else. Not bad. Wolf Berg's second effect is that if the number of foes within 2 spaces, excluding the target, is greater than or equal to the number of allies within 2 spaces, excluding Walhart, then he gets +4 to all stats during combat. So first off, adding +4 to all stats is really nice for Walhart, and it means he will have 57 attack and 43 defense just by having Wolf Berg active. It also brings his speed up to a passable 31. If you're confused about how to activate Wolf Berg, then it's the exact same way as you activate Legendary Ephraim's Flame Sigmund. So when Walhart starts a fight, you have to look at all units within a 2-space range of him. If there are more enemies than allies in that range, then Wolf Berg grants his extra stats. You also don't have to take into account Walhart or his target, so if you have an equal amount of enemies and allies in that range, Wolf Berg will still activate. One enemy and one ally is fine. If there are no other units within 2 spaces, then that is also fine since 0 enemies and 0 allies still meets the conditions. Walhart is meant to be a one-man army who doesn't need to depend on his team for power. That is why he is called the Conqueror. Also, Wolf Berg itself looks absolutely amazing, and if I were going to use Walhart, then yeah, I'd probably want to always see that beautiful looking axe. Short aside, but you may have noticed that Wolf Berg is a direct counterpart to the upgraded refinery effects for the Awakening set of falchions. Walhart wants to be away from his allies to get +4 stats, while Chrom, Lucina, and Mass Marth all will need to be right next to an ally to get their +4 to all stats. This is a really nice way of telling the story between Walhart and the Shepherds through gameplay, and basically if you haven't played Awakening, then just know that Walhart and Chrom don't see eye to eye. Chrom wants to be a king of the people, and Walhart is on the lone path of the Conqueror. I always enjoy when they make subtle references through in-game skill effects like this. Now if we compare Walhart with a few of the other high attack Axe Cavaliers, we pretty much just have Frederick and Spring Alphonse. The only reason I bring up Spring Alphonse is because of his high attack, but he trades his defense for speed compared to Walhart and Frederick, so he's not the best comparison. Frederick on the other hand is a great comparison. Walhart has a few extra total stat points over Frederick, but it's not as bad as you would think. Those points go into Walhart's attack and speed, but remember that Frederick has access to boons. If he goes for a plus attack or plus speed boon, then Frederick already beats Walhart in those categories. Players also like to dump Frederick's res stat since low speed and low resistance means Frederick is basically done if he gets attacked by a single mage. While Walhart's magical poke is a little better, it's not exactly at a point where it's a major advantage compared to Frederick. You don't want either to fight mages. Unfortunately for Walhart, while I think his stats are decent, they just aren't overbearing compared to Frederick, who has filled the same archetype for Axe Cavaliers since the start of the game. Frederick has made a name for himself with the powerful full attack focused Brave Axe build, or being a huge defensive wall with a Slaying Axe or Slaying Hammer. Frederick being a 3 to 4 star unit since the game's launch means that longtime players have had a high chance to have a copy with their desired natures, and as long as they save up the feathers, he can be merged easily. While Walhart can run a similar Brave Axe or Slaying Axe setup as Frederick, it's just hard to say that it's worth it when players can easily get a unit who can do the same thing. If you're going to use Walhart, then I think it's probably the best to use him with Wolf Berg, otherwise just go build a Frederick instead. So one build for Walhart can just simply be to stack stats on top of more stats. Wolf Berg active plus Fury 3 means Walhart is getting plus 7 all stats, which is just nasty. Coupled with the fact that Cavalry have super easy access to holding fortified Cavalry means the Conqueror can possibly bring plus 13 to every stat as he rides into battle. Unfortunately, Wolf Berg requires Walhart to be alone, meaning if you intend to use buffs on him, he will probably have to advance ahead to make an attack before the rest of his team surrounds him. Now since we are using Fury, you might want to swap Chill Defense out for Vantage, but that's up to you. Vantage pairs insanely well with Walhart's sky high attack. If you encounter a Walhart with full cavalry buffs, you are definitely not going to want to engage him in melee combat. For our next build, it's a defensive setup taking advantage of Walhart's great defense stat. This is just a very classic close defense and quick riposte setup, and of course you want Bonfire since it will proc should Walhart get doubled. For A skills, while another close defense is nice, you could also go with Fortress Defense or even Defense plus 3. One of the issues with Wolf Berg is that it forces Walhart to be alone on his own to get the extra stats. For a build like this, you might just be better off with a Defense Refined Slaying Axe, and then you can use Ignis as well. While Walhart can be an absolute defensive monster, it's also something that Frederick can do. Just be sure to keep both away from the mages. This last build is something that Legendary Ephraim can probably run better because Flame Sigmund guarantees follow-up attacks, but Walhart can try to emulate a similar concept. Since Walhart is going to be alone on the battlefield, he will probably engage with multiple enemies, and for that he will love some way of healing. Aether lets Walhart hopefully steal a large chunk of HP back, and using Heavy Blade alongside Quick Riposte should mean he gets it ready fairly quickly. To make sure Walhart stays alive, we give him Brazen Defense and Resistance and Attack Smoke, so if he fights a group of enemies, he can debuff their attack and gain extra defenses to hopefully keep him alive long enough to proc Aether. Brazen Attack and Defense is another good option, but Walhart's weakness is magical attacks, so plus 7 res from a Brazen skill and plus 4 res from Wolf Berg might actually make a difference. This is probably my favorite build idea out of these three. If you have a cool build, be sure to share with others in the comments. So should you promote Walhart to 5 stars? Well, with his high attack, high defense, and somewhat okayish speed, Walhart will be a hard target to take down when fighting other physical damage units. With all the various bonus stats coming from Wolf Berg, his skill isn't any ally boss. Walhart's only standout weakness is magic damage. To take him down, you definitely want a mage if possible. As for Wolf Berg, it's decent but not insanely strong. The Bond upgraded Falchions can boost their stat bonuses even further by stacking spurs and drive type skills from their allies. Meanwhile, Walhart is going to have to be alone by himself to get Wolf Berg working. At least with 3 movement as a cavalry unit, he should have an easier time finding openings. As a one-man army, Walhart will be a decent flanking unit and is obviously better off engaging the enemy first before his team comes in to support him. Overall, I think Walhart's similar statline to Frederick does hurt his uniqueness a bit. Veteran players have had a long time to build a high attack or high defense Axe Cavalier, and Frederick is super easy to get anyway. If you're going to use Walhart, then I think Wolf Berg is the main selling point, but you have to compare it to using a Brave Axe or a Slaying Axe or any other inheritable weapon. In those cases, you could just use Frederick and have access to Natures and Merges if you wanted. Now one category that Walhart unquestionably beats Frederick in is aesthetics. His artwork, sprite, voice lines, and of course Wolf Berg are all amazing, and you can't help but appreciate those type of things. Ultimately, I think Walhart is a good unit, and he really only has one hero to compete with in a small group. You can build him in any way, you can build Frederick. My point is just that players may have already done this since Freddy has been a 3 to 4 star launch unit. Walhart is a cool guy, use him if you want, and you'll be ready to conquer the battlefield. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and since we did just get the announcement for the next Legendary Hero Summoning event, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for my full skill inheritance breakdown for that banner tomorrow. We'll talk about Legendary Lucina and more, so I'll see you guys then.